Hey everyone, Linkoid here, and I just wanted to show you a quick video on how I get a NavMesh agent working in 2D in Unity. And the other thing with it is I'm making it work with colliders. So this has been a little bit of a hassle because I'm new to it. So let me just show you what I've done. So this is the coffee shop simulator game that I'm working on, and we've got down here a navigation surface. So I should start off by saying, and I'll pop it up on the screen quickly, that I'm using a package which allows you to do this easily in 2D. But yeah, I'll put the link either on the screen or in the description. But it's basically, if you Google for NavMesh plus the package in GitHub, and then you add it to Unity, which you can add via window package manager, like you would normally add a package. Or you can do what I did, and you can just drag in the NavMesh components folder, which is here. But anyway, let's have a look. So this is what I really wanted to solve. Is I had a lot of colliders that were stopping my player from being able to run into certain things, and I basically want to use the same colliders like box collider 2D and edge colliders and stuff like that. I want to use them to block off customers the same as they block off my player, because I didn't want to just duplicate everything. So what we've got is we've got this navigation surface. You just create the surface as an empty object, and then you add a component to it called navigation surface. And then this is basically your default kind of navigation surface that is built into the AI navigation package inside Unity. It's for 3D and stuff like that. But the thing that helps is you then add a navigation collect sources 2D component, and that allows you to basically kind of collect the 2D sources to be able to actually update the nav mesh. What you want to do is you want to click rotate surface to XY. I've already clicked that, but what that does is it stops it from being on the Z or Z axis, and then we get our nice flat kind of nav mesh surface. Once you've done that, you then need to add modifiers. So these are things that basically say the NavMesh agent can walk here, or the NavMesh agent cannot walk here. And you can think of them like, you see this little green square here. That's a box collider I've got for the player. And I'm basically saying I don't want any NavMesh agents to be able to walk in this green box, but I do want them to be able to walk inside this bigger green box. So the easiest way to think of it is to make a big box for your main area that you want a NavMesh agent to walk on, and then create smaller boxes to basically cut out of that surface. And then you end up with this kind of blue shape. So let's have a look at one of the modifiers. So I've got this. This is one of my box colliders, and you can see I've got a box collider 2D on here. I've also got a rigid body to set it to static. You can do it with sprites, but I didn't want to do it with sprites. I wanted to do it with physics kind of colliders instead, and I'll show you what tweak you need to make in a minute to do that. So here's the navigation modifier. Effectively, I don't want any NavMesh agents to be able to walk here, so I've ticked override area, and then in the area in the drop down I've basically made it not walkable. And you need to do that for every collider you have. So like this one, I've got one on, this one, and this one. Now my downstairs bounds I've got as this, and I didn't want to use this for the customers because I don't want them to enter this kind of like kitchen area or this employee area, sort of anywhere from here. So what I did is I quickly created another one which basically sections off that sort of kitchen area, so no customers will walk into like the employee area now. And it's important to know that you need to set that as a trigger, because obviously if you don't, and you've got like rigid body and stuff, well technically you don't need the rigid body, you could just remove that. But if you set it as a trigger, it still works. And that means the player can kind of walk through it. So let's have a look at the key thing here, which is in our navigation surface, everything that I've set as a modifier is a direct child of the navigation surface. I read through the tutorial and it looks like you have to do that. I couldn't get it working without setting them as child objects. So I've got my navigation surface, I've got them as child objects, and then inside the navigation surface, over here, where it says use geometry, it defaults to render meshes, so like sprite renderers, things like that. I've changed it to physics colliders instead. Now it will use any of my 2D colliders. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like it's quite simple. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it. Then you've got kind of the code that you can set up to make the customers wander around, or things like that. I'll show you a little bit of the code quickly. Let me just see if I can jump into here. Yeah. So with the code, what we've got is basically on start, there's a lot of code in here, so I apologize. But on awake, we basically set our agent component up. So that's our NavMesh agent. We assign it, and then we can update the rotation to false, and then update the up axis to false as well. What that allows us to do is basically it allows us to do 2D. So just do these two, and then down here I've got a little wander routine, which basically allows my customers to wander around. And what we're doing is basically we're saying wander until you get to the destination, right? So that's this. So we set the destination, and that's just agent.setDestination. And then for wandering, I've just done a random function just to get a random point on the NavMesh. What I'm doing is I'm putting in a default value of 1f to 5f. So the customers will either wander from 1 to 5 distance away from where they currently are. And then, yeah, there's just this little function here, which is get random point on NavMesh. So let me show you how that works in game. We will jump into the coffee shop simulator, and I will show you how the NavMesh agent works. It's just loading. Here we go. So this is our game, and you can see we've already got a customer spawned, and he's going to wander about a little bit. The easier way to watch this is in scene view. So if I click off of everything and turn the gizmos off, you can see that I'll spawn new customers in periodically, and then this little customer is just wandering about. And it's kind of cool, like it works. And it wasn't too difficult to get working. I think the more complicated thing is me now picking up different, different types of activities. Like I might want the customers to wander off up here, and then wander off kind of further, and then two customers talking to each other. But yeah, you can see they're wandering over the NavMesh. And then the next thing to test is in our build system that we've got is when I build something, if I place something on one of these tiles and it has a navigation modifier and a box collider or any kind of 2D collider, if it's got that collider and the NavMesh modifier on it, then these customers should in theory not walk over. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Thanks for watching. I'll keep doing these little updates and these little tutorial videos as I go. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.